is interpretation. Right? It's not just translation. It's stuff that's been read between the lines. Right? So that's questionable, and I have to show evidence for why I put that there, and it can be refuted. Somebody else can say no, there's no, it's not justified, and there's a reason to omit that or change it or something like that. And finally, they say, and he will be amongst the righteous. وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. He'll also be a righteous person. And there are other verses also that include Isa alayhi salam and Zakaria and Yahya amongst the Salihin. Some of the commentators, they mentioned that there are different meanings for these different stages of people. Like some are Salihin and some are Muhsineen and so forth. Different prophets are categorized, and they're kind of in their own, like, all of them are better than all of us, but even amongst them, there are different ranks. And so the Salihin are at one level, the Muhsineen are at another level, and so forth. I don't know much of that, but I know that those sorts of studies have been done, and there are categorizations for those, the prophets even. The next verse is this. قالت ربي أنى يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر قال كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. She said, my Lord, how can I possibly have a child since no man has touched me? He said, nonetheless, the matter is as I have said. God creates what He wills. When He decides a thing, He need only say to it, be, and it is. Right, this verse is very similar to one that we had yesterday. We read it, I think I said it backwards earlier. We saw it from Maryam earlier. This one's from Ali Imran, verse number 47. One interesting thing about this verse is, again, a little apparent discrepancy between the narrations. Right? Because who was speaking to Maryam just now? It was that group of angels, remember? That group of angels had come and they were giving her glad tidings and congratulating her for the birth of her son. Now, why does she turn around and instead of addressing them and saying, you angels, she talks directly to Allah and says, Rabbi anna yakunu li walad. Right? Earlier, if you remember, when Gabriel came to her, the Ruh came to her as a man, he told her that I've come li'ahaba laki ghulam zaki, I've come to give you a son. And she says, "Anna yakunu li ghulam." How can I have a son when no man has touched me? I'm not an unchaste woman. Right? So that was an interchange between her and the angel himself. Here, instead of addressing the angels who have just been talking to her, it's like she almost ignores them and turns straight to Allah and talks to Him. Okay? So again, if there are different instances, that's one explanation, that Gabriel came on one occasion, and then afterwards the group of angels came. And the angels, they give her these glad tidings, but then almost in prayer, almost pleading, she turns to Allah and says, Allah, how is this possible? I don't understand how this can possibly happen when no one's ever touched me. Right? So it's almost like a prayer that she's saying to Allah, an aside. Right? Sometimes in a play you'll have an aside where the characters are talking to each other and all of a sudden they'll turn to the audience and talk to you as the audience, right? And step out of character for a second. So it's almost like she's doing that. She's in a conversation with these angels and all of a sudden she's like, Allah, how can this happen? Yeah? Recite the salawat, please. The end of this verse goes like this. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. First of all, he says كَذَلِكَ. Allah Himself or Gabriel. And he replies to her and says كَذَلِكَ, meaning al-amru كَذَلِكَ, it's going to happen. Just as I mentioned, it's going to happen. Then he mentions two sentences. And these two sentences are to alleviate the doubts that are in Maryam's head. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in the question and answer, we'll see about this. But don't think it's odd that someone like Maryam would have doubts. It's not that she doubts, whether God exists or whether God can do something. It's just it's hard to fathom these sorts of things. Sometimes you in your life you might feel miracles happen, and sometimes you have a tragedy and you get help just at the right time, and you're sure that this is Allah helping you in doing that. But still, there's always a nagging doubt in the back of your mind because we don't have access to revelation where Allah Himself is telling us, or Gabriel is here telling us that yes, this was a miracle that God acted out in your life. Right? So it's natural to have nagging doubts, even if you have strong faith. To have doubts, not whether Allah exists or not, or whether He can do it, but more whether He's going to do it for me. I mean, am I really worthy of a miracle? Right? So there is room for doubt, even in someone like Maryam alayhi salam. So she says, how can this possibly happen? he mentions two sentences to comfort her and to reassure her that yes, it can happen. Right? If somebody can't do something, right, it could be because he's not able to do it. He doesn't have the ability to do it. Or it could be because it's too hard. Sometimes you can do something, but it would take too much time and too many steps to go through, and I can't do it because of that. Gabriel, he negates both of these and says neither of these is the case with Allah. He can do this. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allahu يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah creates whatever He wishes. He has power to do anything. All He has to do is want something, and He can make it. It's not a matter of anything nothing's too hard for Him. If He wishes to do it or make it, then He can do it. So don't worry about Him not having the ability. He has the power. And furthermore, it's not complicated. For Allah, it's extremely simple to make things. He doesn't have to go into a factory or hire elves or do anything like that to make things happen. إِذَا قَضَى أَمْرًا فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. When He decides a thing, all He has to say is be, and it is. So very, very simply, He can make it, so don't worry about that either. So there are two sentences that He says to address the two doubts that He anticipates and really preempts in Maryam's mind. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. Right, they continue to give her more glad tidings and more information about what to expect in the Son. They say in 348, and He will teach him law and wisdom, and in particular the Torah and the Evangel. Okay. So this is the angels again are promising Maryam that Allah will teach her son the law. Kitab in Arabic, in the Quran, it's used in specific meanings. It doesn't necessarily always mean book. Right? So the commentators, especially Al-Taba'i, but some of the other commentators also have found that kitab is sometimes referring to the law. Okay? So that's why I translated like that, like as the law. Wisdom, the law and wisdom, they're both kinds of knowledge. The law is knowledge that helps us to know the limits of things, to solve disputes amongst us, to be able to know that, oh, my property ends here and your property starts there, and those sorts of things. That's the law that sets the limits for our lives so that we can live according to those limits. Hikmah, wisdom, is a kind of knowledge that helps us it leads us towards good action. Right? Hikmah, it comes from the same word as ihkam and muhkam. It's a strong, sturdy knowledge. And it's knowledge that leads you to strong and sturdy action. Right? So you can have true information. Right? So think of like scientific information, something very dry, a mathematical formula or something like that. It's true. It can be proven, but it's not wisdom. Because even if I know that, it's not going to lead me to some outstanding action. It's not going to lead me to good action necessarily. Right? Whereas wisdom is a kind of knowledge that does do that. When you hear a wise statement, when you hear a beautiful poem, a great saying that's true, that's spoken by somebody who knows what he's talking about, it motivates you, it inspires you, and you feel like, yes, I want to act on that. Right? That's called wisdom. Right? So Allah is going to teach him both of these things. Then He mentions that He's going to teach him the Torah and the Injil. Right? Now the Torah and the Injil, it refers to the book of the Jews and the book that's going to be revealed to Isa alayhi salam. Also to the Jews, but through Isa alayhi salam. Now these two books, they include both the law and wisdom. Right? So this is a little bit unusual. In English we probably wouldn't say a sentence like this. That He's going to teach him the law, the wisdom, the Torah and the Evangel. When the Torah and the Evangel actually include the law and wisdom. Right? So for that reason I put this in particular in parentheses there. Right? He's going to teach them law and wisdom in general. In particular, the medium through which He's going to teach him these things is through these particular books, the Torah and the Evangel. Right?